Hello and welcome to another episode of The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. I am your host, Blaine Bartlett, and today we're going to be looking at, how do I put this? Optimal health, I guess, is going to be the bucket that I'm going to work with. But I want to approach this from a very, I think, different perspective. There's a business case to be made for some of the things that we do in life, and actually all of the things that we do in life. And those of you that have listened to the show before have heard me say this, that the purpose of business is to enable the possibility of thriving for folks. And not just people, but the whole ecosphere that we live in. If business is doing it well, everything gets to thrive. And if you're doing thriving well, people will beat a path to your door. Well, our guest today, Steve Welch, is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Restore Hyper Wellness. And they've got I think, a fascinating approach to this question about wellness. And some of you may be familiar with a fellow by the name of Wim Hof, the Iceman. And some of the stuff he does is it's kind of like you go, really? Really? Why would I do that to myself? Well, there's a reason that you do some of these things in service of, for the sake of, optimal health. And the company that Steve heads up is the number one hottest franchise in America, according to Inc. 500. They're number one in category as by Entrepreneur magazine. And they are the number 23 fastest growing private company in the Southwest. They're based out of Texas. The company is fascinating in terms of the product offering, but more importantly, in the way that they do their product offering, I think. So, Steve, I want to welcome you to the show. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and we'll just jump in.
Blaine, I'm excited to be here, and hopefully by the end of this, we'll have you as a client.
I used to live, as we were talking pre-show, down in the Marina Del Rey area in Southern California, and there was a cryogenic studio not too far from me. And I was invited to come in, and it was kind of like, okay, how cold is this? And they're going, and I think they said it's like 50 below zero. And I'm going, excuse me? You want me to get naked and climb into that thing? Why would I do that to myself? It was a fascinating experience. I mean, literally, when I came out of that thing, I felt so invigorated. And I signed up and did some stuff, and then we moved. Moved up here to the island.
We'll take you down to negative 150 degrees.
Negative 150. Sign me up.
The reality is, the reality is you were made, you evolved in an area where it's so different from how you live your life today. We evolved outside. We evolved in the sun. We evolved moving. And today we sit in chairs and we have UV lights and we have air conditioning. It's great. Everything's perfect. But the human body needs stressors. And a lot of things we're doing is trying to use the human body's natural defenses. So it goes through, when you go through that cryotherapy session, it is cold. It is really cold. Your body goes through a little bit of a fight or flight. And that's a healthy thing for your body to go through those phases at times.
Yeah. I do cold showers, every morning, and I can't say that I look forward to them.
No, but we do a lot of things that for health reasons that you probably don't look forward to. Well, nobody looks forward to a colonoscopy. You should probably go get a colonoscopy once you're over 45.
Exactly. But if I've got my numbers right here, if we go back about 60 years, cold showers were the norm. Hot showers were not what we would typically have found in most homes. And this, 60 years ago is not that long ago. This, 1950s, 1960s. And I remember growing up as a kid, the hot water tank was real small. Cold showers were pretty much the norm. Mom would just drop us in the shower and hose us off. I mean, literally hose us off.
Yeah.
and call it good.
Just evolved so fast. 60 years ago, you didn't have health food because all food for the most part was healthy. Yeah. Now we have health food because the supply chains changed so drastically that it's an investment people are making. 60 years ago, you didn't have gyms. Now there's a gym on every corner and sometimes two. And I think what we're riding right now, what Restore is focused on, is kind of that third wave of investing in your health. People start investing in healthy food, absolutely the right thing to do. People start investing in gyms and making sure they exercise, right thing to do for your health. What we're doing is taking that to the next level and helping people with the processes and therapies to make sure they recover faster, they can continue to move longer, they have their inner balance. And what I mean by that inner balance is the internal chemistry of their body is working properly, so they can live lives and do the things they love doing longer in life.
And it's that whole, I mean, if I'm going to hack longevity, probably the only place that I can really leverage it is in my health and well-being, the internal state. Now that,
Yeah.
the environment is going to be what the environment is, and I can do some stuff to regulate that. That's one of the reasons I live up here on the land that I live on. Uh, Concrete is a natural resource in LA, not so much up here on this island. So, I mean, I'm out in the forest every day, and we've got a big seashore here that I walk on, and I look out and I see the water. But all of that stuff, I recognize fully that a lot of folks don't have access to that environmental flexibility. When you're working with folks, how do I want to frame this question here? Yeah, I was talking to Naveen Jain the other day, and Naveen runs a company called my brain just went dead here. Not Vital Health. He's had a number of different startups, but he made a comment about, you have to eat 9 avocados today to get the nutritional equivalent of what an avocado used to contain 50 years ago. And I
Yeah.
don't think that that's too much of an exaggeration at all. And I'm certainly not a nutritionist, so I'm open to being corrected on this. But you've taken, I think, a relatively novel approach, and it started actually when you and your partner actually had a cryo experience, I believe. And I'm kind of butchering the story here a bit, but yeah, I guess where I'm going with this is, how did you get into this? Yeah, just
Yes.
as an owner, as somebody that is looking for longevity and health, optimal health.
So my background, real quick, engineering background. Started a company that's pretty young, called Mitos. We made the back end systems that were used to manufacture vaccines and biological drugs back in the 2000 time period. Didn't know any better as a 23-year-old, so I bootstrapped that. I didn't know what a venture capitalist was. I sure as hell didn't know what an angel investor was. That turned out to be a pretty good thing in the end, and sold that when I was 30. Spent some time, playing around at Penn, and quickly realized I loved getting ideas up and off the ground. To me, there was nothing more fun than that. And got together with a couple other guys, Mike Levinson, David Bookspan, and we started a company called Dream It. And the idea was to give entrepreneurs a small amount of money and a lot of focus to force ideas to fail or succeed really quickly. While it was started for altruistic reasons, about 2 years into it, the capitalists and us took over, as we realized we're on something really, really unique. Fast forward, I guess, 15 years now later, Dream It's turned out over 400 companies that you're probably familiar with, like SeatGeek, if you're a sports fan, Level Up, Octane Lending, Trendkite. These are all companies that literally were ideas on a napkin when they came in the Dream It. And from that, we actually became the second most active healthcare investor in the country. Again, small checks, $50,000 to $500,000. And it was really clear that the consumer was going a different direction than the healthcare system. The consumer was starting to think, the healthcare system was hospital, doctor, pharmaceutical. And all of those things are outstanding, by the way. Where I'm a little bit different than, there are people in the wellness space that don't think very highly of the medical system. I think we have the greatest medical system in the world. Nothing's even close once you're sick. Now, what we don't have a really good way of thinking about things is, all right, well, the goal should be not to get sick. So what Restore was really born out of is this understanding that consumers should be investing more of their time, more of their energy, more of their dollars in preventing getting sick rather than waiting until they are sick to try to address the issue. Because the reality is, often once you're sick, it's too late, number one. And number two, it's just insanity in this country that we spend 83 cents of every dollar on healthcare once somebody's already sick. We think that should be flipped on its head. It should be, right now, we'll call it, 17% is spent on preventative care. We think probably 83% should be spent on preventative care, because that's going to allow us to live longer, to live the lives we want to live and do the things we want to do. And it's a long journey. The reality is we see people every day that, when they're 70, they have ailments, and obviously we're trying to help with that. But, they would have been better if they'd invested 30 years earlier and making better decisions 30 years earlier.
And a lot of people didn't. So you've got a new book coming out on the, I believe, I want to greenfield this, so I won't put the drop date here. But folks, you're going to want to get this book. It's called Restore, and I'm going to get this title right here: Restore the Life-Changing Power of Right Away Wellness. So the idea of right away wellness, I mean, if I infer something out of that title, if I didn't spend the last 30 years taking care of myself, yeah, the only time I've got it right now is now. I mean, now is the only time that I ever can take action. So what's the thematic structure of the new book?
Yeah. So the first of all, thank you for the shameless plug here, and I'll give even a worse one, which is you can go to restore.com and order it at any time. The title comes about by this fact that human beings are amazing at doing things that are going to affect them today. They're pretty terrible at making decisions that are going to affect them 30 years down the road. So what we've really focused on at Restore is things that help you feel better and have an impact on you right away. Because if you can do that, you can get those routines down. Not only will it help you feel better today, but those are the same things that are going to help you feel better and live the life you want to live 30 years later. So, you feel it's Restore, do more. It is helping you today do the things you want to do today. Because here's the reality is, at a bare minimum, continue to move. You got to be able to continue to do the things you love, which almost always those are things that require the body to keep in motion. And once you stop moving, things go downhill pretty quick. So we're providing a lot of the things that help people recover, help people that have energy to continue to do and live the life they want to live. The longer they can do that, the better off they're going to be deeper in life.
Well, in the book, you've got, I believe, 9 elements of hyper wellness that you elucidate.
Yes.
Can you take a little bit of time and walk us through what these 9 items are?
Yeah, and it's really important. Many of those items actually don't happen in the studio. So, we have
Yeah.
230 studios across the country. There's limitations to what we can do. I'll tell you, you can come to Restore every day. If you do not eat well, if you eat like crap, it's not going to matter. You can come to Restore every day. If you never move off out of your couch, it's not going to matter. So wellness is a holistic way of looking at things. And really what we've tried to do is we have a part in that formula for people, but it's only a part. So some of the things that are in there, the 9 elements that are certainly not in the studio, are community and connection. People need to be connected. If you look at the data, one of the most important things to somebody's longevity, their happiness, their health, is connected to friends, family. It's different for everybody, but you have to have that in place. Arguably the best drug in the country, in the world, nothing's even close, is sleep. Good rest.
Mhm.
If you don't get good rest, I don't care whatever. Again, you can do everything else right. Without good rest, your health is gonna struggle. And then there are things we do in the studio, like cold therapy and like heat therapy, which is saunas. We do IV therapy, which is micronutrients. The reality is, again, we talked about food already. The food sources become pretty terrible. But even as you age, your absorption rates go down. Meaning, like when you're 8 years old and you eat a banana, you get everything from that banana. Every nutrient ends up where it needs to end up. When you're 60 years old, often because of cellular deterioration, you won't get the same absorption rates. So some ways they get around that is actually add that back in the form of IV, get those micronutrients back. So there are a lot of different elements there. Another one is oxygen, not rocket science. Every metabolic process in your body requires oxygen, every single one. So we use hyperbaric technology to increase oxygen supply to the body. Hydration, again, not rocket science. I think everybody knows they need to be hydrated. However, arguably 80% of Americans walk around every day dehydrated. So Americans, I think, know what they need to do. What we're helping at Restore is giving them the tools to do it, which often is very difficult.
The ones that you just talked about here, if I go back again in time, just I go back to my childhood. I grew up on a farm. Almost every single one of these I did just as a natural course of living.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just part and parcel of the lifestyle. I mean, I moved, we had community, we slept well. I mean, anaerobic exercise. I was, lifting hay bales, whatever it was. Hydration, water was always available. Micronutrients, I didn't really need an infusion because I was getting it out of the out of the vegetable garden. Um, the only thing that I probably didn't have access to was cold and heat therapy, but I had a cold shower.
Yeah.
But so the stressing of the body, uh, yeah, the on-off switch there.
Yeah.
What is it about cold therapy in particular? And I know that you do infrared sauna work in the studios and whatnot, but I want to focus here on the cold therapy, because a lot of people, when they start thinking about stepping into 150 minus 150 degree chamber and just kind of staying there for a bit, it's kind of like the brain rebels real quickly.
Yes,
What
it
is it
does.
about that cold therapy that is outside of the shock to the system and that sort of thing? But what is it about cold that helps with health?
Yeah, so what's really interesting about cold is the oldest known text to man talk about cold therapy. The Hippocratic School of Medicine, BC, talks about cold therapy. So this is not something that's new. It is, our ancestors discovered early on that cold therapy had a lot of benefits. I'm always the first person to say I am an engineer, not a doctor, so I always preface that. I became sold on cold therapy. My partner actually started doing it. To me, it sounded like snake oil. I'll be completely blunt. And Jim started doing cryotherapy, finally talked me into going to try it. And you can't see this on the podcast, but I have these little chicken legs. And we were training for a triathlon, and we did 35-mile ride in the hill country here in Austin. And normally I get done the next day. My legs are jello after that. I went and did cryotherapy, and it was cold. It was miserable. But I woke up the next day, and I could hardly tell I'd been biking. And I was like, wow, that really has an impact on recovery. And the more I went and dug into it, it is clear that cold therapy reduces inflammation. That reduction in so much of the discomfort, and not even just pain, but discomfort we have in life, comes from inflammation. And by the way, we now know that we have biomarkers in our bloodstream that show that inflammation, and has impact not just on the way we feel, it has impact on how everything in our body functions. One of the things that we're so proud of at Restore is we are very data driven, and so many different ways we are collecting data to make sure that we are helping our clients on their journey, and really doing that in a way that allows us to understand our different therapies in the marketplace and how they help impact clients. And we just published a peer review study that shows cryotherapy reduces those inflammation biomarkers, not only when you do it, but even after you've stopped doing it. For months later, you'll have lower inflammation biomarkers. And I'll tell you, I live a very active life. I kiteboard incessantly. I surf when I can. I sail, and I hurt my back all the time. It's part of the reality of life. Is you get in your mid 40s. I do cryotherapy. It solves that problem for me. It gets rid of that pain and gets me back out doing the things I love just faster.
I'd be interested in knowing how you surf in Austin, but that's another conversation.
Well, the surfing, we actually do have a wave pool, but
Oh, you
that is
do?
not great. So we have so I live on a boat 8 weeks a year, so that's part of it. But they also or Texas does have a coastline that's better than people give it credit for.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. We're going to take a real quick break here, Steve. When we come back from the break, what I'd like to do is kind of go into the business side of things here. How, as literally one of the fastest growing franchise, operation in the country. There's a lot of stuff here that I think we can talk about. Folks, when we come back, Steve Welch is going to take us on a little journey about some of the factors in the success of the company, kind of what has led us to where we are today. And we'll be right back. The nature of life is evidenced in nature. Nature grows, and all of nature honors the desire to be more, to have more, and to do more. Life thrives when it's allowed to grow. And ideally, thriving is what we also, all of us, want to be able to do. Unfortunately, at some stage in life, most people find themselves settling into what I can only call a rut. And a rut is nothing more than a coffin with the ends kicked out. You want to quickly get out of any rut that you find yourself in. When you stop growing, that's when the coffin starts to appear. The simple truth is this, and this is true for everything in nature. You're going to die. I'm going to die. Every one of us dies. So the question we need to come to grips with is not, are we going to die? The question nature asks us to answer is, are we truly living? That's what motivation is about. It's the desire to move. It's the desire to grow and to excel. Have I lived? How have I lived? I'd love for you to take advantage of my Leadership Mindset Masterclass. It's all about providing you with the tools to ensure thriving for yourself and for those around you. Register today to receive the free introduction video and find out more about this acclaimed program. You'll also receive a copy of my international #1 bestseller, Compassionate Capitalism, A Journey to the Soul of Business. I'm Blaine Bartlett, and I look forward to helping you thrive. Hi, folks. Welcome back. Before we took a break, I had mentioned that what I wanted to spend a little bit of time with here in the time that we have on the last half of the show here, talking about the business side of the work that Steve and his company are doing. The #1 hottest franchise in America, according to Inc. 5000. Those things don't happen by accident. They really don't. There is an intentionality behind it, but more than intentionality, there's a structure that kind of has to come into play. You can't just make this stuff up and shoot from the hip and achieve that kind of success overnight or anytime. There's got to be some methodology behind it. So what would you say, Steve, just to kind of open the door here, has been some of the factors behind Restore's explosive growth in the wellness area?
Yeah, I think the first one, nothing's even close, is consumer comes in feeling one way and they leave feeling better. And when that's the case, it is really easy to build a business around that simple fact. Now, there's certainly a lot that goes into that, but that is why this business works. This organization is very data driven, but we never lose fact of the fact that it is the client's experience in the studio, feeling one way, leaving feeling better, that drives everything. So I'd start with that. And I think beyond that, both my partner and I, we have been successful in other ventures. This is both our first franchise system. So franchising is quite different. Certainly, a lot of ups and downs from that process. I think what we're doing today that is making us, what makes this business truly unique versus other franchise systems that are out there is, #1, we have built out a pretty extensive medical infrastructure that allows us to operate in 50 states. The reality is, if I ask you what providers provide medical services in all 50 states with a retail location, you're going to come up with a very small list. And the reason for such a small list is, right or wrong, and I don't want to judge this, but we are basically 50 different medical boards, 50 different nursing boards, 50 different pharmacy boards, and we're basically 50 different countries when it comes to operating in medical space. What we've done really well is invest in that infrastructure to allow us to be compliant and allow our franchisees to be successful across the board. And then specifically over the last year, what I think we've done is we built out the infrastructure that scales the business very effectively. Most businesses, I've been involved in a lot of businesses from idea on a napkin to very successful. They all go through different phases. You have usually rapid growth and then, oh shit, we didn't get this in place, come back down to earth and get that fixed and then go rapid growth. And that cycle is pretty darn common. And for us, this last year has been about putting those infrastructure pieces in place to make this system work for every owner in our system, and to make sure that they know what success looks like. They have the playbooks to drive that success. They have the data to understand where that success is going wrong. And we have the coaching to help them when something's wrong to understand where to focus their time and energy to fix that. I think that is why, we are seeing, very good same-store sales growth right now. We are seeing, the studio performance continuing to improve. And I think that's why, people are interested in a Restore franchise. We give you not only the medical infrastructure that's really important, but also the playbook of how to make sure you're successful as a studio owner.
You mentioned part of one of the key factors there is how people feel when they walk out. It's kind of like, okay, how do people feel about themselves when they're in the presence of my service or product? That's one of the metrics that I pay attention to when I'm coaching businesses. And the invitation to the owners and the leaders and the managers in the business is pay attention to that. You can call it a net engagement score. You can call it all kinds of different things here. But if people feel that they've had an opportunity to thrive or they're moving in that direction, they will continue to come back. We've been talking a lot about the cryogenic side of the house here, but real hyper wellness involves much more than just the cryo. So if I'm a franchisee or a potential franchisee, what is the promise that you make to me?
Yeah, so hyper wellness for us is the consistent and passionate pursuit of your own health, maximizing your own health. And the reason that's so important is, and I'm going to bring this to why it matters to the franchisees. It's, going doing cryotherapy one time, yeah, it'll be an interesting, what you did was an interesting experience, but doing a sauna once, interesting experience, doing drip therapy once, interesting experience, but it is the consistent pursuit of your health, and you have to be passionate about it. The reality is human beings, when they're passionate about something, they're going to be way more effective. There's just there's no piece of data out there that doesn't show passion drives performance, passion drives consistency, and all those things. So when we're looking for in our owners is people that are passionate about their health. If I look at our best operators, they are hyper well. They are following the hyper wellness lifestyle, and because of that, they're passionate about it. That rubs off on their employees. That rubs off on every person that enters their studio. So I think when we look at franchisees, number one is we want franchisees that live the lifestyle, that believe the importance of these things, and are willing to invest in their health. And every day are investing in their health above and beyond just being at a restore. And then second, we need people that are in market, that are in their communities. One of the neatest things about being in a restore franchise is you change your community. I mean, literally, you will have a healthier community when restore's there. Our hope, our dream is, 20, 30 years ago, everybody wanted a YMCA in their community. You and I grew up in a time where like the YMCA moved into a community. That was a changing event for the value of the homes. It was a changing event. Everybody had a better lifestyle. When Restore comes into the community, I think you see the same thing where you have the opportunity to invest in your health in a way you just haven't been able to in our society yet. Because of that, you have a healthier community. I know our owners, our best owners, what gets them up every day, it's not making money. That's certainly business absolutely has to make money. But it is that feeling that they are having an impact on their community in such a material way, I think is what drives most of them. And I think I will tell you, that's what drives our leadership team here. There's a lot of ways to make money in this world, but we're focused on something we know really has a positive impact on society.
And I'm going to kind of go back to the 9 factors that you were talking about earlier, and you led with community, and I feel the blue zone community is probably one of the top. Well, it is the top, I believe, factor in longevity. Having a social network, having a community that is but also restorative. I mean, I can in the safety of the community, and the organism calibrate itself as a consequence of that. So I'm really struck by that because when I look at compassionate capitalism, which is a book that I wrote, and folks that have listened to this show have heard me talk about this, but the predicate around compassion is connection. And I can't be compassionate towards anything unless I feel connected to it, including my health and well-being. If I'm not feeling connected to my health and well-being, there's an exhibition of compassion towards myself. I don't take care of myself. So
if I could interrupt you on there, one thing that I think you hit on 100%, which is the importance of community, but it's even a little bit deeper than that. If you surround yourself with smokers, you're going to smoke. Okay. The mathematical probability increases. So if you surround yourself with healthy people, you're going to be more healthy. And one of the neat things when you go to a restore and you sit in the studio, it is the interaction between the different members. They share stories, they build relationships, and it is really a restore location is a community in itself. And that's one of the things we absolutely love about it. And you hit on for me, and I've talked about this a lot, is if your health doesn't work, for me, there's 3 buckets in life. There's the family bucket, there's the you bucket, and there's the work bucket. All 3 of those things require healthy living for them to be functional. Again, you cannot be in a healthy relationship if you don't ever sleep. You can't be effective at work if you don't ever sleep. So all these things are so interconnected. And the reason I love your original book is my first book was a book called We're All Born Entrepreneurs. And in that book, I talked a lot about what I call the collective self-interest, which is very similar to what you're talking about, which is this idea that a company lives in a community and it has to be a part of that community. And that part of that community is its responsibility to its clients, 100%. It's a responsibility to its employees. It's a responsibility to its investors. And all of those things are a collective self-interest. I think what makes America work better than any other capitalist system out there, and there's other capitalist systems, but I think what makes ours work is we do understand the different components of that and weigh them fairly in the right way. I mean, there are other societies where everything is about making sure every employee is the most important, and that can throw things out of balance, as opposed to looking at some other places the customer is always right. And it is that balance between those competing interests that I think makes our society function so effectively here in America.
Well said. I like that. The idea here of success, and I was struck by the way that you described your ideal franchisee is somebody that lives. I mean, they walk the talk. They
Yeah.
actually embody what it is that they're selling out there, and the idea of continual success in life, achieving success in life. Earl Nightingale years ago, and some of you, look up Earl Nightingale if you don't know the name. Just do yourself a favor and become familiar with Earl. But he was asked one time, find success, and he said it is the continual pursuit of a worthy ideal. And I cannot think of a more worthy ideal than my health and well-being. It will color everything and permeate everything that I encounter and everything that I work with. Where can people find out more about what you're up to, what Restore is up to? Restore Hyper Wellness, but you've got a truncated.
Crazy. Restore.com.
There you go. Restore.com. And they can get a copy of your book. They can pre-order the book if you're listening to this and it hasn't come out yet. But if you're listening to this after it's come out, you can go directly to it. They can get that on the website as well.
They can. And the book is really written to be an easy read. Both my partner and I felt pretty passionately we did not want an 800-page scientific novel. It really is well designed where even if you say, hey, I have this ailment or I have this problem in life, the beginning of the book is actually, if I have fibromyalgia, here's stories on fibromyalgia and, things people did to help with that. If it's a lower back pain, whatever it may be, we're trying to help guide them to the right stories. Those stories are real clients that have been in Restore and have changed their lives. Often, again, being at Restore, but often doing things outside of Restore. It is not just about the Restore. We are an important piece in one's wellness journey, but we certainly are not the only piece.
Great. Steve, I have loved this conversation. I could carry it on forever. We've got a couple of other shows that we do as well. I'd love to have you on one of the office hour shows that I do with my partner, David Meltzer. We can get that organized, and we got a nice broad audience there as well. So
sounds great.
I'd love to have you on the show. Folks, you've been listening to Steve Welch, the CEO of Restore Hyper Wellness. Get a copy of the book, Restore the Life-Changing Power of Right-Away Wellness. You will not be disappointed. As Steve said, it's not a war and peace type of a tome here. It's an easy read. You will be glad you picked it up. I want to thank you guys for listening. This is Blaine Bartlett. I have been your host today. As always, I'm going to end with this admonition. Find some way in your life to be a center of distribution, not a center of accumulation. When you're giving things away, when you're giving energy away, when you're distributing, the messaging is it's an abundant universe. And that's where life lives, is in abundance. So go forth and give away. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.